In the video, this woman is dressed provocatively and behaves in a free-spirited manner. It's hard to imagine that she comes from Iran, where not wearing a hijab or face veil can result in the death penalty. She is the niece of a former top Iranian military figure, now living in the United States with permanent residency. Her limited edition luxury custom off-road vehicle, along with a yacht behind her, shows that she's currently living a lavish lifestyle. However, this sensitive figure in the US has been far from discreet. On the contrary, she has been openly criticizing and even insulting the United States. But now she's been arrested and will soon be deported back to her home country. People online have strongly reacted, commenting, "Immigrants who are anti-American should be immediately deported. If immigrants think America is bad, they can leave for a country they prefer. Don't tell me the US government begged them to immigrate here. She should be shown on Iran's state TV so their regime can see how she's living." Some added that this should have happened earlier, but the US needs to handle it more systematically. It's not just one case. There are plenty of people from China and Russia in the same situation. On April 4th, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced the revocation of permanent resident status for Hamida Soleimani Afshar, the niece of the former Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps commander Qasem Soleimani. Hamida and her daughter were then detained by federal authorities, awaiting deportation. At the same time, the daughter and son-in-law of the former Iranian national security head, Ali Larijani, were also deported and banned from re-entering the U.S. This has shocked the world, not just because of the sensitive nature of the people involved, but because it breaks a long-standing norm. Many families of anti-American regime elites, while publicly condemning the West and America, secretly place their children, wealth, and lifestyles in the U.S. They curse the great Satan with their words, but their bodies head straight for it. This double standard has been common in the past, but this time the U.S. clearly no longer wants to turn a blind eye. According to the U.S. State Department, during her time in the U.S., Afshar openly supported the Iranian regime on social media, promoting its attacks on U.S. military and Middle Eastern military facilities. She praised Iran's supreme leader, called America the Great Satan, and firmly supported the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is recognized as a terrorist organization. The content she deleted from her Instagram account has become direct evidence. Rubio also posted on X, emphasizing that the Trump administration would never allow the U.S. to become a haven for supporters of anti-American terrorist regimes. This statement carries significant weight. It's no longer just about law enforcement. It's a clear warning to all authoritarian families around the world. You can rule in your own country, but you can't enjoy the safety, property protection, and freedom that America offers while openly supporting regimes and actions that harm the U.S. What's more concerning is the background of Afshar herself, which exposes another issue. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security stated that she entered on a tourist visa in 2015, sought asylum in 2019, and received a green card in 2021 during the Biden administration. However, she later admitted in her naturalization application that after receiving her green card, she returned to Iran at least 4 times. This immediately raised questions from law enforcement. If she was truly unable to return to her country due to political reasons, how could she frequently travel back to Iran? This suggests that her asylum application was likely fraudulent from the start. Her daughter followed a similar path. She entered the U.S. on a student visa in 2015, sought asylum in 2019, and obtained a green card in 2023. Now, both mother and daughter have been detained, symbolizing not just the revocation of their personal status, but the dismantling of a system that exploited loopholes in U.S. law. The name Soleimani carries significant symbolism. On January 3, 2020, a U.S. drone strike in Baghdad targeted and killed Qasem Soleimani, commander of Iran's Quds Force, along with key members of an Iraqi militia group. Soleimani had long been considered the core figure in Iran's efforts to extend its armed influence abroad, and a key instigator behind many conflicts in the Middle East. Now, the U.S. is not only taking action against him, but also targeting the security and privileges his family enjoyed in the U.S. The treatment of the Larijani family expands the scope of this warning. It is no longer just about one individual or family, but a public demonstration of the entire circle of authoritarian elites. As long as you have close ties to hostile regimes and enjoy U.S. resources while supporting anti-American forces, your green card, visa, and residency status are no longer secure. Commentator Jen Yu noted that the Trump administration's actions against the family members of high-ranking Iranian officials in the U.S. can be seen as the strongest signal sent to Beijing. In fact, the U.S. government has been advancing the strategic policy, but it has faced many legal hurdles and conflicts of interest, especially with the U.S.'s inclusive immigration policies. However, this trend will not change, and based on current geopolitical analyses, large-scale reckoning for Chinese Communist Party elites may not be far off. According to the latest U.S. congressional bill, a provision targeting the wealth of CCP leadership has already been included in the 2026 national security legislation. The bill requires the U.S. Director of National Intelligence to submit a report after the bill's enactment, detailing the global asset holdings of the top Chinese leadership and their families. This is not just about intelligence gathering, it resembles a systematic public wealth audit. The bill targets not just regular officials, but specifically the General Secretary of the Communist Party, Politburo Standing Committee members, and all Politburo members. It extends to their families, including spouses, children, parents, siblings, in-laws, and even those who hold assets on their behalf, such as proxies or frontmen. The investigation will not be limited to China, but will also cover Hong Kong, Macau, overseas real estate, financial accounts, investments, and business interests. In other words, any wealth chain concealed through family members, agents, or business partners could soon be exposed to the public eye. What's more significant is that the U.S. Congress has explicitly required the report to be released in an unclassified format. This means it won't just be locked away in a confidential room for a few select members of Congress to review, but it could be posted directly on official websites, making it accessible to global media, financial institutions, law enforcement, and even the general public. The impact of this approach is far greater than simple sanctions, as it targets not just the assets themselves, but two things that authoritarian families fear losing the most: secrecy and security. In fact, a similar requirement appeared in the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act, but the subsequent report was criticized as being superficial, only mentioning about $1 billion in assets held by the Xi Jinping family, with little detail on the overseas assets of other current Standing Committee members. This time, however, Congress has detailed the targets, scope, and public release methods, effectively putting pressure on the executive branch. No more vague references, but a thorough investigation and public disclosure. For the Chinese Communist Party elites, this is the real warning. Once their overseas assets, family connections, and proxy networks are gradually exposed, the safe retreat they relied on will no longer be secure. Looking further, the issue of CCP elites' overseas wealth is the truly sensitive part of the matter, and it makes the CCP's central leadership uneasy. The transfer of massive hidden assets by elites to overseas locations is no longer news. What remains unclear is the exact amount of money involved, where it is hidden, and how it is being channeled through various people and networks. It is widely believed that the so-called Red Second Generation and Red Third Generation, along with the Princeling families, have long established a mature system for transferring assets overseas. Observers have pointed out that CCP leaders have long used their privileges to send descendants of Red families to the U.S. using state-sponsored studies or other special channels. Once these individuals enter the Western elite circles, they build overseas capital networks for their families, managing wealth, arranging identities, investing in businesses, and even assisting in handling proxy holdings. Simply put, the previous generation gained benefits within the system, while the next generation manages the money abroad, completing the wealth transfer. Money and capital, passed down through family generations, form a closed loop. As for how much wealth these Red families possess, there have been no authoritative and complete public figures, but the rumors are staggering. Hong Kong media reported that about 78% of the second-generation Red families are involved in business, and the proportion is even higher, 83% among third-generation Red families. These family members become extremely wealthy at an astonishing speed, often entering the billionaire club in just around 5 years. This rapid wealth accumulation is clearly not the result of ordinary market competition. What further shocks the public is that Hong Kong businessman Yuan Gongyi once revealed that the wealth transferred abroad by 50 CCP elite families amounts to $10 trillion. Among this, the Jiang Zemin family alone holds $1 trillion. The entire structure consists of 50 families at the top, controlling the 90 million party members below. An individual with long experience in financial management made an even more shocking statement, claiming that the overseas wealth transferred by these red families is rumored to reach 30 trillion US dollars. When adding in assets they control, manage, or hold through proxies, the total scale could even reach 60 trillion US dollars. Of course, this figure cannot be independently verified, and its authenticity remains in question. But the reason it attracts attention is not just because of the enormous sum, but because it reveals a crucial fact. A substantial portion of the massive wealth accumulated by the CCP over decades have flowed into the hands of a few elite families. The reason these families have been able to amass such staggering wealth lies in their access to political resources that ordinary people cannot reach. Leveraging their family backgrounds, they secured core opportunities in the most profitable sectors, including state-owned enterprises, real estate, finance, energy, and mining. They then used related transactions, offshore companies, foreign funds, and agents to transfer their wealth abroad. On the surface, it appears to be business expansion and capital operations, but in reality, much of it is a form of power monetization. As early as 2012, Bloomberg tracked the financial trajectories of 103 direct descendants of 8 major CCP veteran families, along with their spouses, in an attempt to reconstruct the power and wealth landscape of this red aristocracy. The 8 veterans include Deng Xiaoping, Wang Zhen, Chen Yun, Li Xiannan, Peng Zhen, Yang Shenkun, and Bo Yibo. Bloomberg's investigation showed that the descendants of these families have long occupied important positions in state-owned enterprises, financial institutions, and large commercial groups, transforming political power into economic benefits. Taking advantage of China's reform and opening up period, they continuously expanded their family fortunes. According to the data, at least 26 sons of these 8 veterans hold senior positions in state-owned enterprises, while among the 31 third-generation red families tracked, at least 11 directly managed businesses or held executive roles, mainly in finance and technology. However, it is somewhat reassuring that while these red families have transferred astronomical amounts of wealth to countries like the US, Australia, and Canada, these countries are not their true homeland. They are under close surveillance by various governments. Their wealth has been plundered from the people, and once the CCP's totalitarian regime collapses, they will likely face their fortunes being seized or even personal reckoning. So, why has the US sent such a strong signal at this moment? Zhen Yu explained that since the Iran war began, a large number of military analysis videos made by Chinese people have appeared on social media with Farsi subtitles. The aim is to expose U.S. military information and provide ideas for Iran to strike U.S. forces. Although the CCP has not directly intervened in the fighting, it has secretly provided all the support it can. Recently, 2 U.S. fighter jets were shot down by Iranian anti-aircraft fire, which was widely believed to have had crucial support from the CCP. This has enraged President Trump. On April 2nd, Hong Kong media reported that in mid-March, a Chinese engineer posted a widely circulated instructional video with Farsi subtitles. On April 3rd, a U.S. F-15E fighter jet was hit in Iranian airspace, prompting the U.S. to carry out a rescue operation. Iran claimed that they had deployed a new air defense system the day before, and hinted that U.S. aircraft were targeted by this new system. Iran also claimed that it was aiming for full control over its airspace in the near future. Zhen Yu stated that the Hong Kong media outlet, which is aligned with the CCP, seemed to be using this report to boost its own image, claiming that it still has influence over the Iran conflict, and that its technological support has enhanced Iran's ability to counter U.S. forces. While the actual impact of this claim remains to be confirmed, it is clear that the CCP's comprehensive support for Iran has indeed caused significant trouble for the U.S. military. Many years ago, when a U.S. F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter was shot down over Yugoslavia, it was believed to be the result of key support provided by Chinese intelligence personnel. On March 27, 1999, several F-117s took off from a U.S. military base in Italy, heading towards Yugoslavia as usual. At the same time, Chinese intelligence agents stationed near the U.S. base in Italy informed their military advisors in Yugoslavia of the F-117's departure time. The Chinese military advisor calculated the approximate time the F-117 would reach the Yugoslav border and alerted the Yugoslav air defense forces. When the time came, all air defense systems opened fire. Sure enough, although Yugoslavia could not detect the stealth aircraft, they managed to shoot down one of the U.S. planes during dense anti-aircraft fire. After the F-117 was shot down, the Chinese and Yugoslav governments reached an agreement, gaining access to the F-117's navigation equipment, the remains of the stealth coating, and high-temperature resistant engine parts. These were secretly stored in the basement of the Chinese embassy in Yugoslavia for the Chinese military experts to study. However, Chinese military experts didn't realize that the embedded power source inside the F-117's navigation system was still working and continuously sending out location data. Though China quickly cut the power, it was too late. The U.S. military had already discovered the exact location of the F-117 wreckage. When the U.S. military found that the wreckage was inside the Chinese embassy, they were shocked and decided to stop China from accessing U.S. military secrets at all costs. The U.S. decided to use missile strikes, but before doing so, they issued several warnings to China, which were ignored. This is the true story behind the bombing of the Chinese embassy in Yugoslavia. The vast majority of Chinese people, including those who support Iran online, remain unaware of this behind-the-scenes detail. Some online commentators noted that while the shooting down of the F-15 fighter jet did not change the situation on the battlefield, it certainly enraged the U.S. It seems that the good days for the CCP elites are numbered. If one day we see exposés about children of CCP elites in the world's largest Chinese media, on X, or even on mainstream media like the BBC, it will be far more shocking and attention-grabbing than any entertainment gossip.